The galaxy was vast, but few knew how fragile peace could be until it was tested by a single decision. On the far edge of the Milky Way, the Dravari Empire, a proud alien civilization of towering warriors and strict traditions, had ruled for centuries with a combination of strength and cunning. Its people were known for loyalty to their king and their unyielding code of honor. Yet even in a kingdom as disciplined as this, there were those considered unimportant, and among them was the youngest princess, Sira. Sira had grown up in the Iduro, gilded halls of the Dravari Palace, surrounded by warriors and scholars, yet she was always treated differently. Unlike her older siblings, she was soft-spoken, gentle, and lacked the usual physical prowess expected of Dravari royalty. The court physicians, after years of examinations and tests, had deemed her infertile. Among the Dravari, fertility was more than a personal trait. It was a measure of worth. To be infertile was to be dismissed, a princess with no legacy and no importance. The king had long accepted her condition quietly, assuming she would fade into irrelevance. But the galaxy had other plans. A fragile truce between the Dravari and humanity had been forming over the last decade, and the king had been asked to offer a gesture of goodwill. After careful thought and consultation with his advisors, he made a decision that shocked many in his court. He would send Sira to the human leadership, not as a bride, not as a diplomat, but as a gift. A symbol of trust, he said, a peace offering that could not be refused. When the orders came, Sira was stunned. For the first time, she felt the weight of her supposed uselessness being transformed into purpose. But she also felt fear. She had grown up knowing that humans were unpredictable, fierce, and very different from the structured life she had always known. Her guards, massive warriors with glinting armor, escorted her onto the transport ship that would carry her to the human base. Commander Leon, the human officer in charge of receiving her, waited in the docking bay. He had heard about the gift from his superiors, but had not expected the presence of a real princess. What he saw was a delicate figure, slightly taller than an average human, but with soft violet eyes that looked out at him with curiosity and unease. Her movements were careful, almost hesitant, as if the weight of centuries of expectations rested on her shoulders. "You must be Princess Sira," Leon said gently. He offered a respectful bow, not as a greeting of subservience, but as a sign of acknowledgement. Sira tilted her head slightly, unaccustomed to this kind of reception. In the Dravari Palace, greetings were rigid, filled with protocol and often intimidating, but Leon's calm demeanor immediately made her feel at ease. "I am," she said quietly. Her voice was soft, melodic, and carried a sense of cautious curiosity. I am here as you were told, as a gift." Leon shook his head, smiling faintly. "No, you are not a gift. You are our guest. And we treat our guests with respect, not as objects." Sira blinked, trying to comprehend the words. In her life, she had been treated as an object more than a person. To hear someone say that she had value simply for being herself was almost foreign. She followed Leon as he led her through the human base, marveling at the structure. The architecture was different from Dravari constructions. Instead of towering, imposing buildings, everything here seemed designed for practicality and comfort. Humans moved freely, laughing, talking, working together in ways that felt chaotic and alive. Over the next few days, Sira observed the humans closely. She watched how they shared meals, how they listened when someone spoke, how they corrected each other without anger. She began to understand that humans valued different things than the Dravari. They valued courage, intelligence, and heart, not just strength or lineage. Leon introduced her to the human team carefully. Captain Marin, a strategist with a sharp mind, welcomed her with a warm handshake. The engineers, who had never seen an alien up close, approached her with polite curiosity. For the first time, Sira felt seen, not as a failed princess, but as someone worthy of attention and care. One evening, while walking along the observation deck overlooking the stars, Sira spoke quietly to Leon. Why do you treat me like this?" In my world, I am nothing. A failure. A shadow. Leon looked at her, his expression calm. You are nothing only if you believe it. In humanity, worth is not measured by what you can produce or what you are expected to do. It is measured by your choices, your courage, and your heart. You are more valuable than you know. Sira felt a warmth she had never known. She had spent her life surrounded by people who measured her in numbers and titles. And yet here, a human, told her that simply existing, simply being herself was enough. It was liberating and terrifying at the same time. The days turned into weeks. Sira began participating in human activities, sometimes awkwardly, sometimes with surprising aptitude. She showed keen intelligence in strategy discussions and demonstrated creativity in solving engineering problems. Humans listened to her suggestions and sometimes even implemented them, something that had never happened in the palace. Her confidence grew slowly, but steadily. Meanwhile, rumors of her progress began reaching the Dravari homeworld. The king, initially indifferent, became increasingly concerned as reports described his daughter not as a helpless, infertile princess, but as someone respected and admired by humans. Her actions were fostering goodwill, bridging cultural gaps, and quietly proving her worth. The more he heard, the more his pride turned into unease. Sira, unaware of the stir she was causing at home, continued learning and observing. One day, she asked Leon about a human ritual she had seen, a small celebration where humans thanked each other for help and shared stories of courage. Leon explained that humans valued recognition of effort and kindness, not just results. It's how we remind each other that everyone matters, he said. Sira thought about this deeply. In Dravari society, recognition was reserved for warriors and heirs. In human society, it was offered to everyone. The idea was strange but comforting. For the first time in her life, she felt she belonged somewhere, not because of her title or her abilities, but because of who she was. Her bond with Leon deepened naturally. He treated her as an equal, discussing tactics, ethics, and even philosophical ideas. Sira found herself respecting humans in ways she had never imagined possible. They were messy, noisy, unpredictable, but they were also compassionate, brave, and clever. She realized that these qualities were what made humanity strong, not sheer power or numbers, but resilience and heart. One afternoon, while walking through a human garden designed for relaxation, Sira paused to touch a flower she had never seen before. Its delicate petals shimmered in the artificial sunlight. Everything here is different, she whispered. Even small things feel important. Leon nodded. In our world, small things often carry the biggest weight. Sometimes they mean more than titles or armies. Sira smiled faintly. It was a real smile, unguarded and free. She felt herself growing, not just learning but changing. She was beginning to understand the value of life beyond expectation, beyond labels. Humans had given her something the Dravari palace never could, the chance to be herself. As the days passed, Sira started taking small steps toward independence. She walked without guards, participated in missions in safe capacities, and began forming friendships. She learned their language fluently, and even picked up subtle gestures and customs. The humans, in turn, were fascinated by her stories of the Dravari Empire, their traditions, battles, and politics. The base buzzed quietly with whispers about the infertile princess, who was now respected and admired. People who had been skeptical began to follow her advice, relying on her keen observations. Engineers sought her input on alien tech. Strategists consulted her about cross-cultural negotiations. Slowly, she was becoming a bridge between two worlds, a living symbol of cooperation. But not all news was welcome. Back on the Dravari homeworld, the king's advisors worried. She is gaining influence, one said nervously. Among humans, she is being respected. Among their soldiers, she is admired. The king clenched his fists. She was meant to be a gift, forgotten and insignificant. How dare they treat her as more? His voice was heavy with anger and disbelief, yet Sira remained unaware of the storm brewing across the stars. She was focused on her daily routines, learning about humans, and slowly finding her own confidence. In her quiet moments, she would look at the stars and think about her life in the palace. The cold stone halls, the endless lessons in combat and diplomacy, the whispers about her infertility, all of it felt distant now. For the first time, she felt alive, and she felt capable. One evening, Leon invited her to the observation deck again. The stars stretched endlessly across the sky, distant worlds glowing like tiny lanterns. Do you ever wonder why humans are so different? Sira asked softly. Leon smiled. We make mistakes, we fail, we fight, but we also care deeply. We respect life, value effort, and protect those who cannot protect themselves. That is our strength. Sira nodded. She felt the truth of his words deep in her chest. She had spent so long believing she was weak, that she had nothing to offer. But here, among humans who valued courage and heart over titles and biology, she was discovering her true worth. That night, as she rested in her quarters, Sira thought about the future. She did not yet know what lay ahead, nor the storm. The silence of space was deceptive. From the comfort of the human base, it looked calm. Beautiful even, but far across the galaxy, storm clouds of anger had begun to gather. The Drivari king, whose control over his empire was absolute, was furious. Reports of his youngest daughter, Princess Sira, thriving among humans and earning their respect had reached him. Each message seemed to mock his expectations, proving that what he had dismissed as a worthless, infertile child was becoming something far more formidable than he could have imagined. Determined to see this for himself, the king departed with a small escort of elite warriors. Their ships glided silently through the stars like predators on a hunt, until they arrived at the human base. The humans detected the approach immediately and alarms were raised, but the king sent no hostile messages. Instead, he requested a meeting with the commander of the base, Commander Leon. When the king arrived in person, the scene that met him was far from what he had expected. Princess Sira walked freely among the humans, laughing lightly as she spoke with engineers, scientists, and strategists alike. She was no longer a timid girl hiding behind her guards. She carried herself with quiet confidence, a serene presence that drew attention without effort. The king's eyes narrowed. He had imagined her scared, obedient, easily dismissed. Instead, he saw respect and admiration in every glance she received. The sight made his fists clench at his sides. This was not the weak princess he had intended to send away. This was someone entirely unexpected. Leon stepped forward, standing firmly in front of Sira. Your Majesty, he said respectfully. Princess Sira is welcome here, as our guest. She is safe, and she is treated with dignity as she deserves. The king's voice cut through the tension, cold and sharp. Safe? Dignity? She is my daughter, Commander. She is Drivari. I sent her as a gift for peace, not to become your equal or your ally. Sira turned to face her father for the first time. She had been told about his arrival, but she had not fully grasped the weight of this confrontation. Standing before him, she felt the old mix of fear and determination. For years she had been silenced, dismissed, and ignored, but the humans had shown her a different way, a way that gave her strength she did not know she possessed. Father, she began, her voice steady, I am not your gift. I'm not a symbol of your control. I am here by choice because I have found a place where I am respected for who I am, not for what you expected me to be. The king's eyes burned with fury. Choice, respect? You speak of choices when I have commanded your life since birth. You are my daughter, and your duty is to the Drivari Empire, not to humans. Sira's gaze did not waver. I have learned much from the humans. They do not measure worth by power or bloodline. They see value in courage, in heart, and intelligence. I have been treated as a person for the first time, and I will not forget it. I am still your daughter, but I am also my own person. The tension in the room was nearly tangible. Humans watched silently, knowing the potential for conflict but trusting in Sira's composure. For the first time, the king felt something unfamiliar. Doubt. This girl, whom he had considered a failure, was standing firmly on her own, unshaken by his anger. Before he could respond further, Sira suddenly felt a sharp weakness in her body. She staggered slightly and Leon caught her gently. The base medical team rushed forward immediately, taking her to the infirmary. The king's fury shifted to concern, though he did not show it openly. Doctors examined Sira carefully, running tests and monitoring her vitals. After hours of examination, the human medical chief approached Leon and spoke quietly. Her condition is improving. She is responding to treatment in ways Dravari medicine could not achieve. If the current trend continues, she may regain full fertility. Leon's eyes widened. Are you certain? Yes. The condition that rendered her infertile in Dravari assessments was subtle. Human medicine and our approach to healing, physical and emotional, are helping her overcome it. The news spread quickly. The king, who had followed the updates, was stunned. His daughter, whom he had dismissed entirely, now had the potential to produce an heir. The very person he had sent away as unimportant might now carry the future of the empire. The realization was both alarming and humiliating. The king demanded an audience with Sira once again, insisting on a private meeting. She entered the chamber, supported lightly by Leon, her head held high. The king's gaze was intense, almost predatory, but Sira did not flinch. Do you understand what this means? The king asked sharply. You have the potential to produce an heir, a future ruler of the Dravari Empire. That power belongs to me, and yet you remain here among humans. Why? Sira's eyes met his with unwavering resolve. Because I have chosen my place. I am your daughter, but I am also my own person. I will not be controlled even by you. I will not be a tool for politics. I will live with dignity, and I will decide where I belong. For the first time in his life, the king felt the weight of uncertainty. He had expected obedience, fear, and weakness. Instead, he found independence, wisdom, and a courage that surpassed his expectations. It was a confrontation unlike any he had experienced with his children before. Leon stepped forward, speaking calmly but firmly. Your Majesty, Princess Sira is safe here. She has grown, learned, and proven her worth. This is not a challenge to your authority, but an opportunity. She can be a bridge between our civilizations, a living example of cooperation and understanding. The king's mind raced. Dravari law stated that heirs and those capable of carrying the royal line were under the king's guardianship. By this rule, he could demand Sira's return. Yet she was not a passive child to be taken without consent. She had grown beyond what he could control, and she had the support of the humans, whose strength he had come to respect, grudgingly if only a little. Sira took a step closer to him. Father, I am still your daughter. I respect you and the Empire, but I also respect myself. I will not allow fear or tradition to dictate my life. I will work with humans to strengthen both our worlds, to build something greater than fear or ignorance. The king's expression softened slightly, though he did not show it openly. He realized that his fury had blinded him to something important. Sira was no longer just a princess, but a leader in her own right. The humans had not diminished her. They had revealed her strength. In the days that followed, Sira's recovery continued. The human doctors confirmed that her fertility had returned and her health was strong. The king observed this progress quietly, wrestling with his pride and his sense of duty. Eventually, he sought a private conversation with Leon, the human commander who had become Sira's protector. You have treated her well, the king admitted reluctantly. Better than I ever did. She is capable. Perhaps more capable than I expected, Leon inclined his head. She is a remarkable individual. Her strength has always been there. She simply needed a place where it could grow. The king paused, considering the implications. If she remains here, she will form ties with humanity that could change the empire forever. She may even choose to align with them in ways I cannot control. Leon's expression was calm. That is her right. And in that choice, she strengthens both our worlds. A willing alliance is stronger than one forced by fear or politics. The king nodded slowly, a rare humility showing through his pride. He realized that the future was no longer solely his to dictate. His daughter had grown beyond the boundaries of tradition, and there was no turning back. Sira, fully recovered, emerged from the infirmary with quiet confidence. She had regained not only her health but also a sense of purpose. She now understood that her value was not in fertility or tradition, but in her courage, intelligence, and compassion. She was ready to shape her destiny, not as a gift, but as an individual who had earned her place among humans and Dravari alike. The king approached her finally. the tension between them palpable. He bowed his head slightly, a gesture of acknowledgement he had rarely given. "You have chosen your path wisely," he said. I see now that my daughter is stronger than I believed." Sira smiled, a mixture of relief and pride. "Thank you, Father. I will always respect you and the Empire, but I will live my life as I choose, and I will build bridges, not walls." The humans, witnessing this moment, felt the significance of it. A bridge had indeed been formed, not just between worlds, but between tradition and progress, between expectation and freedom. And so, the story of the princess who had been deemed infertile became legend. She had been sent away as a token of peace, dismissed and undervalued, yet she returned in spirit as something far greater. Through courage, wisdom, and the human belief in individual worth, Sira became not only respected but also a symbol of unity, a reminder that strength is found in heart and mind as much as in bloodline. The Dravari king, though still proud and cautious, learned a lesson that would stay with him for the rest of his reign. The true power of a leader is not in control, but in recognizing and respecting the strength of others. Across the stars, the galaxy watched silently, as a young princess once considered worthless, now stood as a bridge between civilizations, an heir not only of lineage but of courage, intelligence, and the enduring spirit of humanity. The future was uncertain, but it was bright, and it belonged to those brave enough to choose it.